WagerTalk TV. My name is Minty Betts. You can find me on Twitter at Minty Betts. Joining me today is Drew Martin at Drew Martin Betts on Twitter. Give him a follow. Today we're going to talk real briefly about how to win at sports betting. Drew, give us some winners. What's a good tip on winning at sports betting?
Sure, Minty. The best thing that I've found in doing this for 5 years as my straight job now is to find change. And wherever you can find change, going from that point forward, be betting on that change, being kind of on your side here, whether that's an injury, so the best player going down and the team either changing tempo, looking to fade the team, I guess very rarely looking to bet on the team in that situation. Maybe the market's kind of overcompensated for an injury. Also coaching, maybe a coaching change.
Right.
So the philosophy of the team, whether this be basketball, football, going from that point forward, because Minty, you got to think, to beat the odds makers, to beat the casinos, the sports books, however you want to put it, there's a lot of data out there. So when you do, trends and angles, it sounds good. And a lot of times, it can lead you to the right side. But you got to keep in mind, the odds makers know that as well. That's for their use as well. So if you can find where that changes and then going forward from that point where the numbers might kind of shift or lead the public bettor to a different route, that's the best way that I've found to win in the past.
Cool. And then just a quick question. A lot of people think that sports bettors watch every single game that they bet on. Do you, or do you find that you don't really need to pay attention and watch every single game that you bet on? Because with college basketball, there's hundreds of games on in a day. There's no way you can keep up with all of that, right? Or
sure. I try to watch
right,
as much as possible. Any way you can gain information, I think, is a good thing as a sports bettor, whether that's watching, reading, looking at stats. So I try to watch as much as possible. You bring up college basketball. That's the sport that I've actually had the most success in.
Oh.
And to watch all the games, no, I can't. You can't watch. I think that would be humanly impossible.
What channel is
really
Hampton game on?
Well, I've done that before, Minty. In terms of it's not maybe on ESPN or even ESPN Plus, but you get some guy out there in the stands.
Oh
with
yeah, online with all the pop-ups.
Exactly. I've tried to go that route before.
Web game. Yeah. Okay.
But
Next tip.
yeah, no. In terms of watching the games, in football, I actually think it's more important because of the way the game sets up. You have 11 simultaneous matchups all happening, and each one of them kind of affecting the play at different percentage-wise, in my opinion. The quarterback, his decision-making, is he going to continue making that same decision? I love watching games and really focusing in on the quarterback's propensity to throw the ball deep and using that in totals, because a lot of times I think that's just kind of inherently built in him in peewee football, high school football, into college football. When the play breaks down, how much is he throwing the ball deep rather than just checking down or running the ball? Right. So if you can kind of circle that, and maybe in the beginning of the season he missed a couple deep passes by just a yard or two. And you can use that because that's not going to be in the stats that the odds makers are using later on in the season. So if you can kind of circle that situation and maybe be looking to bet on that team or betting them over in that situation, I think that's an advantage you can get by watching the games.
Interesting. All right, what's another tip you got?
Beginning of the season, I think in a lot of sports, it's an easier time to win in the beginning of the season.
Really?
Mainly because by the end of the season, there's a lot of stats out there, odds out there. Right. There's a lot of opinion on each of the teams in whatever sport you're talking about. So whenever you get more eyeballs, more knowledge on each team, it makes for a more efficient market, whether it's sports betting, investing, whatever. If there's a lot of opinions out there, usually the stronger opinions rise to the top, and it makes for a more efficient market. So I think we get more inefficient markets in the beginning of the season.
Interesting. Okay, and you got one last one for us?
I guess I got two more, and one of them leads into what we were just talking about, more volatility. A lot of people think of volatility as a bad thing. I actually think it's a good thing. You can buy low, sell high a lot easier like that. So if you understand the marketplace, I think a volatility market like college basketball totals, Minty, we'll notice they'll move over 10 points sometimes, 155 to 145 due to an injury. That's telling you something. That's volatility. That's the huge changes. Whereas NFL sides, from 2.5 to 3, that's a huge move.
Big, yeah.
Right. So it's less volatile, and sure enough, the NFL is a more efficient market. So I tend to have less plays, less bets in the NFL than I do college basketball totals because of that reason.
Yeah.
I think that it's easier to win in a college basketball totals betting market than it is an NFL sides market. Last year, I tend to concentrate on less eyeballs on the sport that you're betting on. Meaning, if you're betting an SEC game, LSU versus Alabama, there is a lot of people with a lot of opinion, a lot of people watching that game. Whereas if you're betting Akron versus Bowling Green, or keep it in the Sun Belt, Troy versus Louisiana Lafayette, there's just less people with opinions on that game.
Right.
And the sportsbooks still put out sides and totals on those games. Now, granted, some of them in the Sun Belt are less limits than in the SEC. But overall, I mean, I think that less eyeballs on the game, less opinion is an easier market to win in long term.
I love that one. Thank you, Drew. $2 Tuesday, every Tuesday. Bet the hottest handicappers best bet for just $2 at both WagerTalk.com and our sister site, sportsmemo.com.